When my brother dropped his 3 kids on me at the airport with zero warning, I thought it was a favor. Turns out, it was a last-ditch escape plan. I had no idea just how deep the family drama ran. Or how far I'd have to go to protect those kids. What happens when doing the right thing means breaking everything you thought you knew? When my father told me, I should have known something was off. We hadn't had a real conversation in years, not since I moved across the country and made it a point to keep things polite and distant. I assumed someone was sick or dying. Instead, I got picked up from the airport by my brother and handed a bag of diapers before I even set my suitcase down. "We're going to Europe," he said. "Just stay with them." No discussion, no heads up, no asking, just the assumption that I'd take care of his 3 kids like some kind of stand-in nanny while he and his new girlfriend sipped wine in Tuscany. I didn't say anything, not at first. I just watched him load the suitcases into the back of the minivan like he was already gone. The kids looked up at me with tired eyes. The youngest still had a dried smear of cereal across her cheek. I hadn't seen them in a couple of years, but I remembered their names: Ellie, Jonah, and little Sophie. His ex-wife, Kelly, used to bring them to holidays before things blew up between them. Now she was completely out of the picture, or so I thought. They left that same evening. My parents waved them off like proud handlers, not even looking at me. No one explained why the kids couldn't go, why this whole setup was being forced on me, or how long they'd be gone. I figured a week, maybe 2. That night, I sat in the living room with the kids, watching a movie while texting a friend about the insane ambush I'd just walked into. Jonah fell asleep on my shoulder. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't about reconnecting, it was about dumping responsibility. The next morning, I found a folder in the kitchen drawer labeled Travel Itinerary, Europe Trip. It was detailed: 2 weeks in Italy, rental cars, restaurants already booked, photos printed out. They'd been planning this for months. There was also a crumpled envelope tucked in the back, addressed to my brother. I almost tossed it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a note from his ex-wife, Kelly. It wasn't recent, dated about 6 months earlier. It said she missed the kids, that she still lived in the same town with her mother, trying to get back on her feet. She knew she'd messed up by not fighting harder in court. She couldn't afford a lawyer and hadn't seen the kids in 4 months because my brother refused to let her visit. She begged him to let her just talk to them. It hit me like a brick to the chest. I waited until they were halfway through their second day in Rome. Then I packed the kids' things in silence while they played with some blocks on the carpet. I loaded them into the rental car. I didn't leave a note. I didn't text. I just drove. It took me 4 hours to reach the town she mentioned in the letter. I didn't know if she still lived there, but something told me she hadn't moved far. The first grocery store clerk I asked remembered her name. That was all I needed. When Kelly opened the door and saw the kids standing there, she froze, then just sank to her knees and pulled them in one by one. Her mom stood behind her, speechless. That night, I slept on their couch. The kids curled up in sleeping bags, happier than I'd seen them since I got off the plane. I finally texted my brother around midnight. "They're with their mother now. I'm staying here until you get back. Don't call me." He did anyway. My phone rang nonstop, my parents, too, but I didn't answer. That's when things really started to spiral. They landed back in the US 2 days later, and the rage started before their luggage even hit the carousel. It began with a casual text from my dad: "We need to talk when you have a minute." I didn't answer. Then my brother sent a wall of messages that kept lighting up my screen like a slot machine. I read the first one, full of fake calm, calling this a huge misunderstanding, saying they were confused, then skipped the rest. I knew what came next. It didn't take long. By noon, they were all calling me, first my mother, then my brother's new girlfriend, then my father again. Each voicemail sounded more desperate than the last. They wanted to know where the kids were, if they were okay, what I was thinking. I didn't respond until that evening. I texted one line: "They're with Kelly. Don't come here." The call stopped for a few hours after that. I assumed they were regrouping. The next morning, my brother showed up at Kelly's place. I saw him pull into the driveway from the kitchen window. I told Kelly to stay inside and stepped out to meet him before he could get out of the car. He didn't say a word at first, just stared at me, then shook his head like I was some malfunctioning piece of equipment. He finally got out, slammed the door, and came up to the porch. I told him the kids weren't coming with him, that Kelly had just as much right to them as he did. He started shouting, saying I was way out of line, that I'd ruined everything, that I didn't understand what she was like, that she didn't have a job, didn't have her life together, and lived with her mother. I stood there while he laid it all out like a case to a jury. Then I said the one thing he didn't expect: "That's not your decision to make anymore." His mouth actually dropped open. I told him I'd already called a lawyer and that if he tried to take the kids by force, we'd file for emergency custody. I had proof of his behavior. Kelly had kept everything. He threatened to call the cops. I told him to go ahead. He didn't. He just walked back to his car and drove off, probably straight to our parents. That night, Kelly sat across from me at the kitchen table, staring at the small pile of legal papers I'd brought back from the law office. She asked why I was doing this. I didn't know how to explain it fully, not then, but the truth was simple: because no one else ever had. I learned more about what happened between them over the next few days, about how my brother had slowly stripped away everything she had, her job, her confidence, her access to the kids. He didn't even bother being subtle. She showed me emails she'd sent, begging just to FaceTime them on holidays. She'd get no reply or, worse, replies pretending she was harassing him. He told the kids she abandoned them. They believed it until now. Jonah started asking questions at bedtime about why his mom cried when she hugged them, about why she made pancakes every morning even when she was tired, about why she kept saying she was sorry. I told him she missed them a lot, that she loved them. He asked if I was staying, too. Yeah, I said, I'm not going anywhere. 2 days later, my father called and said we needed a family meeting. I told him that part of my life was over, that I was cutting them off financially, and no, I didn't need their permission. I'd been helping them out for years, quietly covering expenses when they couldn't, wiring money when they needed it. I told him I was done, that every cent was going to the kids now, to Kelly. My mom left a long voicemail after that, crying, saying I'd ruined everything, that I'd embarrassed them, that I'd destroyed my brother's relationship, that his new girlfriend had flown home early because she couldn't deal with the drama. I didn't reply. I had a new plan now, one they'd never see coming. On the third morning at Kelly's, I woke up to the smell of burnt toast and Sophie standing over me in pajamas 2 sizes too small, holding a drawing of what I assumed was her, me, and a lopsided cat. The caption was spelled wrong, Uncle Peter. That one drawing made every ounce of jet lag worth it. Kelly was already up, wearing the same hoodie she'd worn since I got there. She made coffee for both of us and apologized for the mess, like I hadn't already spent 2 nights sleeping next to a plastic bin of old VHS tapes. Then she asked if I remembered their old dog, Max. I did, the shaggy golden retriever that used to bark anytime someone sneezed. She said he died last winter. She couldn't afford a vet, so she wrapped him in a blanket and buried him in the yard by herself while the kids were with my brother. She told me this without any edge, just like it was another fact in a long list of things she'd had to do alone. Something changed in me right then. I pulled out my phone and canceled my return flight. No one knew, and I didn't care. I called my job later that morning and told them I needed time off. I kept it vague, just said it was a family situation, which technically wasn't a lie. My boss paused for a long time and said, "All right, just keep me posted." That was the start of everything, the pivot point. That afternoon, I sat down with Kelly and told her I was staying, not just for a few more days, not until things calmed down. I meant staying for real, for however long it took to fix this mess. She asked me why I'd do that, why I'd give up my time, my work, my life for her and the kids. I told her the truth, that I didn't recognize my own family anymore, that I'd spent years quietly funding their bad decisions, watching them treat people like garbage, trying not to get involved. I thought maybe I owed someone better a little of what I'd been giving to people who never deserved it in the first place. We made a list that night, things the kids needed, things she needed. It was 3 pages long: winter clothes, toothbrushes, school records, legal help, car repairs, and on and on. She looked at it like a mountain she'd never climb. The next morning, I started crossing things off. We went shopping first. I bought each of the kids proper shoes and enough clothes to stop them from rotating the same 3 outfits. We replaced backpacks, lunchboxes, filled the pantry. I took them to the pediatrician, got their medical files transferred, even set them up with the dentist. Kelly just watched me like I was building a rocket in her front yard. But the real turning point came when Jonah asked me a question in the middle of the cereal aisle. "Are you our new dad?" I stopped moving. I told him, "No, not even close." I said I was just someone who thought they deserved better. And then I told him something else, something I probably shouldn't have. "You're not going back to your dad's house, not anytime soon." I meant it. My brother was still trying. The texts became more frantic, first pretending to be concerned, then threatening, then fake legal, a badly written cease and desist email copied from the internet. He said I was interfering with custody, that I'd taken his kids without permission, that he had a lawyer. I called his bluff. I had an actual lawyer by then, a good one. We filed for temporary custody modification. Kelly was terrified. She thought the courts wouldn't believe her, that my brother would charm them like he always did. But we had something new this time: time-stamped messages, financial records, a long, ugly trail. We also had me, someone the court could look at and see as neutral. I wasn't in this for revenge. I wasn't their father. I was their uncle, and I had eyes. Kelly cried the night we filed the paperwork, not the hopeless kind of crying, the other kind, relief. We told the kids slowly, one piece at a time, that they'd be staying in this town for a while, that they'd be going back to school here, that their mom was going to be around more now. At first, they didn't believe it, especially Jonah. He kept asking when their dad was coming back. Then one day, out of nowhere, he said he hoped he didn't. That night, I got a call from my mom. I let it go to voicemail. She said I turned on the family, that I was trying to destroy my brother's life, that he and his girlfriend had split up, and it was my fault. I listened to the message while sitting on the porch, watching Kelly fold laundry with a focus like it was brain surgery. Sophie was playing with her new crayons. Ellie was reading a book. Jonah had built a fort out of every pillow he could find. I deleted the message. They didn't get it yet. This wasn't about punishing them. This was about saving what was left. I knew they'd come. It was only a matter of when. 3 days after my mom's voicemail, my brother showed up again, this time with our parents. They didn't call ahead, just pulled into the gravel driveway in a rented SUV like they were there to reclaim stolen property. Kelly saw them from the window and froze. I told her to stay inside with the kids and stepped out before they could make it to the porch. They looked ridiculous standing there, my father trying to stay calm, my mother already red-faced, my brother wearing aviators like this was some sort of power play. No one spoke first. Eventually, my dad asked if I was really going through with this nonsense. I told him we'd filed for custody modification, that Kelly had legal representation, that the kids were safe, in school, and doing better than they had in months. My mom jumped in, saying I had no right to interfere in a legal family matter. I reminded her that I was family and that what they'd done wasn't parenting, it was abandonment dressed up as a vacation. That's when my brother finally spoke. He accused me of manipulating Kelly, of using her emotional state to get back at him. He said I was brainwashing his kids. I laughed out loud, actually laughed. I told him I was done letting him use people, that I wasn't afraid of him, his temper, or his empty threats. I told him he had no clue how close he was to losing everything. That was when he made a mistake. He said, "You don't get to decide who's a fit parent." I said, "You're right, but a judge does." They left without another word. My brother tried to slam the door to the SUV and missed the latch. My mother gave me one last look, the kind she used to give when I was a kid and refused to apologize, like I'd betrayed some unspoken rule. But I didn't care. I just watched them go. That night, I sat at the table with Kelly and her mom while the kids played in the living room. I told them I was ready to go all in, full legal backing, financial support, everything. I wasn't going to let the kids go back to that house, ever. Kelly asked me how far I was willing to go. I told her I'd already passed the point of no return. The next day, we met with the attorney again. We worked through logistics, documentation, testimony, dates. We started building the kind of case that couldn't be ignored: photos, messages, video calls, school records, text logs. The attorney said it would take time, but we had more than enough to at least push for temporary full custody. Meanwhile, I was living there full time. I got up early with the kids, helped them get dressed, made breakfast, drove them to school. Kelly was doing everything she could, but she was exhausted, emotionally, financially, physically. I took the weight where I could. The system doesn't move quickly, and we needed to survive the in-between. One afternoon, Jonah asked if they were going to have to go back to their dad's house. I told him not if I could help it, and I meant it. It wasn't just about protecting them anymore. It was about building something stable, something the three of them had never really known. I wasn't their father. I never tried to be. But I was the only adult in their life who showed up and kept showing up, and that meant something. My parents kept trying, more calls, more emails. They said I was ruining the family, that I was turning the kids against their father, that I was siding with a woman who couldn't even support herself. I didn't answer. I forwarded everything to our lawyer. In the meantime, I helped Kelly apply for work-from-home jobs. I co-signed a lease for a used car. We fixed up the back room so I had a proper space to sleep. I'd never lived like this before, no plans, no schedule, just a daily battle to keep something good alive. And as strange as it sounds, I felt more grounded than I had in years. I wasn't just playing the good guy. I was finally becoming the person I should have been all along. 2 weeks later, just when I thought we had found some kind of rhythm, things snapped. The school called. Jonah had been pulled aside by a woman claiming to be a family friend, saying she'd come to pick him up early. Office staff didn't let her take him, thank God, but it rattled everyone. When I got there, the principal looked serious. He said the woman didn't give a name but matched the description of my brother's new girlfriend, the one who supposedly left him in Italy. I called my lawyer on the spot. Kelly was shaking when I told her, not from fear, from rage. She kept asking how they even knew what school the kids were in. I had a sinking feeling I knew the answer. That evening, I checked my email and found one from my dad. It was short: "You're turning them against their father. You think you're saving them, but you're just making things worse." That meant they were watching, digging, maybe even tracking us somehow. So I made a decision that night, a big one. I told Kelly to pack bags for the kids, just a few things, essentials. I called a friend from college who lived in Vermont, someone I hadn't talked to in years but who owed me big. We got in the car the next morning and drove 6 hours without telling anyone where we were going. No updates, no calls. We stayed there for 5 days. My friend had a quiet cabin near the edge of a lake, no neighbors, no internet, spotty cell service. I left my phone off most of the time. The kids thought it was a vacation. They fished, built sandcastles with rocks and pine cones, roasted marshmallows. They didn't ask questions. Neither did Kelly. And for those 5 days, no one yelled. No threats, no lawyers, no drama, just silence and trees and laughter that didn't sound forced. Then, on the 6th morning, Kelly found a manila envelope in the mailbox outside the cabin. No return address. Inside was a copy of a custody petition filed by my brother. It claimed abandonment, manipulation, and mental instability on Kelly's part. There were even screenshots of my social media from years ago, photos of me drinking at parties, old sarcastic posts about hating kids, a blurry image of me holding someone else's baby with the caption "Please take it back." They were reaching hard, but the message was clear: they weren't stopping. I drove back to town that day, straight to the courthouse. I filed for a restraining order on behalf of the kids, citing the attempted school pickup. Our lawyer said it wouldn't last forever, but it would buy us time. Kelly broke down that night. She said she was scared, not of my brother, but of losing what she had now. She said she couldn't go back to the way it was, that she'd rather disappear again than watch him break their kids down piece by piece. That's when I did the one thing I hadn't told her about yet. I opened the drawer of the small desk in the guest room, pulled out a check I'd written a few days earlier, and handed it to her, $15,000. She stared at it like it was radioactive. I told her it was hers, to start over, for a new apartment, for daycare, for groceries, for whatever she needed to build a life without fear. She tried to give it back. I refused. The next day, I changed my number. I cut off my bank's auto payments to my parents, every single one. The mortgage assistance I'd been sending, the $200 my mother got each month for vitamins, the Netflix account, gone. That same night, my brother left a voicemail: "You're going to regret this, Peter. You don't know who you're messing with." He was wrong. I knew exactly who I was messing with, and I was done giving them the benefit of the doubt. The morning of the hearing, Kelly was so tense she couldn't eat. The kids stayed with her mom while we sat in that dull county courtroom, fluorescent lights buzzing, everything quiet except the shuffle of papers and the ticking of an old clock that felt deliberately slow. My brother didn't show. He sent a lawyer instead, some guy who looked half asleep and came with a single folder. Meanwhile, our side had 2 binders, a timeline, affidavit from school staff, printed texts, even copies of financial transfers showing Kelly had been deliberately cut off from supporting herself or seeing the kids. The judge, a sharp-looking woman with a calm voice, looked through the files carefully. She didn't ask many questions. When Kelly spoke, she didn't cry. She told the truth. She said she had made mistakes, that she had been overwhelmed and underprepared, but she never stopped loving her kids. She said she had been pushed out of their lives because she didn't think she had a choice, but she was ready to fight now, not out of anger, but for their safety. Then the judge turned to my brother's lawyer and asked plainly, "Is there a reason your client isn't present for this hearing?" The lawyer fumbled, saying he was out of state for business. The judge wrote something down and nodded. When the ruling came, it was short: full temporary custody to Kelly, immediate placement with her, supervised visitation only for my brother, and only upon review. A restraining order was added to keep both my brother and his girlfriend away from the school. Kelly stared at the floor for a while, then she just whispered, "We did it." And for the first time in weeks, she looked like herself. That afternoon, I drove the kids from school and told them the news. Jonah's face lit up, but Ellie was quiet. She just walked up to her mom and hugged her without a word. Sophie cried, not because she was upset, just relief. That evening, Kelly started making a list. She wanted to find a small apartment nearby, one with a bit more space, maybe a tiny backyard. She wanted to get the kids into a better routine, maybe start working evenings when her mom could help. She was thinking about daycare, community programs, job training. She was making plans. I helped her find a place in a quiet neighborhood with decent schools. I paid the first 3 months' rent, plus a deposit. I got her a used car with low mileage. I made sure she had a laptop, a printer, and helped her apply for remote support jobs. She got one 2 weeks later. She kept asking what she could do for me. I told her she already had. On my last day staying with them, the kids made thank you cards. Sophie drew our family, stick figures holding hands under a giant sun. Jonah said I was better at pancakes than his dad ever was. Ellie gave me a small, polished rock from the lake, the same one from the cabin, and told me she wanted me to keep it forever. That night, after they were asleep, I handed Kelly an envelope I'd been holding onto for days, another check for $15,000, enough for furniture, school supplies, savings, maybe even a little time off. She stared at it for a long time, then asked if this was my way of saying goodbye. I said no. I just wanted her to have something they could never take away again. The next morning, I packed my things. Kelly's mom hugged me like I was her own. Kelly didn't say much, she didn't need to. When I closed the car door, Jonah ran out barefoot to hand me a note. It just said, "Please come back soon." I drove home in silence. My apartment felt like it belonged to someone else. I turned on my phone, 64 missed calls, emails, voicemails. A new one from my dad: "Peter, you've destroyed your brother. I hope you're proud of yourself." Another from my mom: "You've broken this family apart." And then something new, an email from a cousin I barely spoke to, saying she'd heard what I'd done, that she'd seen Kelly once, years ago, in a parking lot, crying into a phone. She wished someone had stepped in back then, and she was glad someone finally had. She ended the message like this: "They're angry because you ended the cycle. That's what real change does." I didn't answer my parents. I didn't respond to my brother. I blocked them. I sent my lawyer the latest messages. Then I sat down and opened a notebook. I wrote down every detail, not for legal use, but because I didn't want to forget how far it had gone, how much was broken, and how, somehow, something good still came from it. 3 weeks later, I visited the kids. Kelly had started a part-time role. The apartment had framed photos on the wall, proper beds, even a small art corner for Sophie. Jonah had made the soccer team. They were sleeping through the night. That was the first time I let myself cry since this all began. I'm not their father. I never pretended to be one. But I gave them something no one else had, a chance. And I don't care if my parents never speak to me again or if my brother thinks I betrayed him. I didn't ruin our family. I finally saved part of it.